19. Then Good Earth, also one at the July meeting to come forward. Then chairman of the board. Visibility looks okay for our commentator, Mark Johnson.
They're going to be found right across the course. Here's one of the pace setters, likely pace setters. This is Significantly, who's about to go forward. Chairman of the board and Good Earth are also still out of line. We're taking a look at the moment with the pink colours. That was Apollo 1, who will be coming out of stall 27 on the grandstand side. Significantly goes in to stall 28, chairman of the board into stall 19, and that will leave Good Earth and Aidan Keeley into stall 20, going here without number 9 Summergander, who has been withdrawn. So a field of 27 right across the course. They're in the gate and they're off, and Rumstar is unseated the rider. Rumstar number 2 and seated the rider, leaving the stalls. They're splitting into 2 groups, and Mr. Wagyu has got the early lead. Hyperfocus is also right up there, and Lucky Man is also showing speed over the far side, together with Aberama Gold and also Watcher. Meanwhile, towards the near side, the early leader is Significantly, who's leading the way to Apollo 1, who is racing in 2nd position, and then in 3rd is Good Earth, followed by Juan Lepan and then Bielsa. But it's the group over on the far side, led by the Loose Horse, who has got the lead, and it is Aphelios now on the far side with Hyperfocus, who are the first 2. They're being followed by Elise Dancer. In the middle of the course, Mr. Wagyu is right up there, and also Orazio is travelling well. Aberama Gold, Apollo 1 is coming through now to lead on the near side. Mr. Wagyu has the overall lead with 2 furlongs to go in the Stewards Cup. It's Mr. Wagyu and Aberama Gold. Then on the near side, Apollo 1 staying on Significantly. Over on the far side is Aphelios, and they're then being followed by Vintage Claret, who is picking up. They're now racing well inside the final furlong. Aberama Gold in the centre has got the lead. Apollo 1 on the near side comes through now to join him. Bielsa is late on the scene. Aberama Gold, Apollo 1 racing up towards the line. Aberama Gold has won the Stewards Cup. Apollo 1 in 2nd. Tight 3rd, Mr. Wagyu or Bielsa. Then Elise Dancer Significantly, followed home next by Spanish Star. Then Aphelios was next, and then Al-Bashir reading right back to Watcher, who was last but 1 and came from the dark, was last of all. At 18 to 1, Aberama Gold has won for Andrea Atzeni and David O'Mara. They've won by about 3/4 of a length. In company with the Loose Horse, Aberama Gold wins. Apollo 1 is in 2nd. In 3rd, the noseband is Bielsa, and I think it will be Bielsa in 3rd. It is. Mr. Wagyu is in 4th. Tight for 5th. Far side, Elise Dancer. 6th Significantly. 7th is Spanish Star. 8th is Al-Bahia. 9th in the black and orange is Aphelios, and then a long break back to the 10th home, and that will be Juan Lepan. 11th will be Gorak, and in 13th will be Vintage Clarets, followed by Fragidatori's mount, Mum's Tipple next.
What an extraordinary week it's been for owner Evan Sutherland, David O'Mara, who wins this race for a 2nd time, Andrea Atzeni wins it before he heads off to Hong Kong, because this time last week, Leona, that horse won the Sky Bet Dash at York, now doubles up with the Coral Stewards Cup a week later.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they'll be really chuffed with this as well. A pretty new acquisition for the Dave O'Mara team. He does so well in these races. I mean, the way he travelled through this race as well, he looked like the winner for the majority of the race. He was the last one off the bridle, I think. Plenty were working very hard, but he seemed to really just thrive today. A few have obviously disappointed out the back that perhaps haven't enjoyed the ground as much, but the ones that we thought might have, there's plenty of horses who were in the place prices, like Apollo, like Elise Dancer, Bielsa as well.
Atzeni is so hot. He'll soon be racing for this type of money on a regular basis, week in and week out, when he's positioned over in Hong Kong. David O'Mara does incredibly well in all the handicaps. He only has had him for 3 or 4 starts from Keith Dalglish, and the winner, the winning owner, Evan, he's had an Air Gold Cup winner with Highland Kalori. He's had a Wokingham winner with Outdo. He's now had a Stewards Cup winner here with Aberama Gold. That's fantastic for Evan.
And do you know how he fell in love with racing? It's quite a good little tale. He wanted to take a girl out for dinner, but apparently didn't have the money to do it. He was given a tip for a horse called Raffin Gora, ridden by Lester Piggott. So he backed it, won, had the money to go out to dinner. The bad news was she wasn't impressed. She described them as ill-gotten gains, never saw each other again, but he fell in love with racing, thank goodness. The start was important here.
Good story, yeah, let's wind it right back. So I wonder if that loose horse has actually helped in the end. We lost Rumstar, who was in 16.
Aberama Gold next to him in 15.
Yeah, it looks like the horse was just on his knees in the stalls as they opened. Went to jump out. Let's have another look.
Yeah, he ducked down, didn't he, under? Oh, he went right under.
Oh, Reese Clutterbuck had no chance there. He seems to be absolutely fine, I think, getting up there.
And you would say the winner was inconvenienced, because at this point, if you're on Aberama Gold, you've got a loose horse coming in front of you. He probably has, as a few have, taken back to let the loose horse go wherever he was going to go.
But I wonder, in the end, when he had the loose horse running on his right, he was still kind of chasing the loose horse. Did that help him?
Possibly, but you'd rather it didn't inconvenience you in the early part, I would imagine, Jace. As you say, if a horse is, you look and there's a horse with no rider on, straight away your thing is to come away from it because you don't know what it's going to do.
Yeah, something possibly to help him late in the day when he was running up towards the line. But look, it's a super victory, and I'm sure that Evan, I don't know if he's here today. I haven't seen him floating around. He normally comes up and down the country to watch his winners.
It's so typical, isn't it, for Andrea? He makes a decision to go to Hong Kong because it's been tricky since he lost his retainer for Sheikh Mohammed Obeid, and now everything's going in his direction and he's absolutely flying. Over to Matt.
Britain's loss is Hong Kong's gain. Andrea Atzeni, brilliant in the Richmond, and here you've won the cavalry charge for the first time, the Stewards Cup. How did it go for you, Andrea?
It was pretty straightforward for me, Matt. The only thing I would say, the horse was drawn 13, sort of tried to go under, and he obviously became loose, and I was aware of that, but we got a nice toy to the race. Well done. He travelled really good into it. You know, it's hard going out there, and when I let him down, he just picked up all the way through. It was the longest furlong ever, to be fair.
Did the loose horse actually help you in the final half?
Well, I had some into aim at anyway, but you just never know what he could have done, you know. I was just aware of it just in case he came across in front of me, which he didn't, luckily.
And Andrea, you've won the Richmond, you've won the Stewards Cup. Anything in the back of your mind thinking, why am I going to Hong Kong?
No, Matt, no. Listen, I never regret anything in my life. It's a decision that I made a little while back, and I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. Listen, I'm taking each day as it comes, and it's a great result to win this race.
Well done to Andrea Atzeni, literally turning the Stewards Cup to gold.
Led in by Ferry there. In behind is the trainer, David O'Mara, who's had an across-the-card double today. Had Arn Ladd win at Doncaster, 113 to 1 double. He has the Midas touch, doesn't he?
He does, and when he managed to win at York, I think it was, just the other day, as ever, David, real classy, he said, I think he's still running on Keith's petrol, was the way he described his victory at York. And yeah, listen, we wish Keith the very best in where he's gone, and it's lovely that David's got him for another plundered big handicap.
And we'll look out for him in a couple of weeks' time. At the Ebor meeting, he'll have a strong hand there as well. He has won in the space of a week the Sky Bet Dash and then the Coral Stewards Cup. Aberama Gold went off at 18 to 1. Congratulations if you had Aberama Gold in our ITV7 sweepstake. You'll go through to the draw to win 10 grand. Apollo 1 was second at 10 to 1. Bielsa third for the ITV7 player. No 100 grand won today, unfortunately. Mr. Wagyu has run well again in a big handicap. Ali's Dancer finished in 5th. 6th, I reckon, was Significantly, who was so well back just before the off. If you had the first 7, Spanish Star, I reckon, was 7th. Al Bashir 8th if you had first 8, which some bookmakers were doing as well. As you can see there, it looks like Rishi is set to go.
I'm just waiting for the photo to be taken. David obviously did his best smile and he's come over now. David, Jason was saying that when this horse won at York just recently, you were saying still running on Keith's petrol. But still, I mean, it's some performance to do that at York. Come here today in these conditions. What were you expecting today?
Evan that owns him said he'd handle the ground. He said he'd love it. Said he's very straightforward. Mark Wynne, who rode him at York, would possibly have been on him today had he not been sitting out of suspension. So with his £6 penalty for York and not having marked 3, he was £9 heavier today in effect. So it was a good performance. He loved the ground, and Andrea's given him a beautiful, simple ride, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it was really straightforward because he and Mr. Wagyu bowling along down the middle.
Yeah.
Not really many other horses got into it.
No, it's not often you see a Heritage Handicap as straightforward as that. The loose horse was a bit of a cause for concern, but in the end, Andrea thought maybe it helped him in the last sort of half of furlong that he had a bit of company to look at.
And obviously you won this race before, Summergand. These sort of races people think to associate with you. I mean, how much is this a target for you through the seasons?
We've got these good old handicappers, and we run them in all these big Heritage handicaps, and I think they get conditioned running in them, and they get better for competing in them, and they pop up sort of in turn, if you like.
Yeah, they do pop up in turn, and then you sort of think, right, okay, what's the next target? And then people start thinking, well, because of where they are, you might have to look at something outside of handicaps. But what about this guy?
This guy still sort of is on a mark where he could probably go to air,
So that will be the next plan. You have to discuss that with Evan.
It's a bit off whether there's anything in between, but air would be a good plan.
And would you believe it? After the most horrendous deluge, it's sunny and warm now.
It's nice now, yeah.
Well, it's especially nice for you because you've just won the Stewards Cup. Well done.
Very much, thank you.
In glorious sunshine, Ferry leads away the Coral Stewards Cup hero. And I've just seen Rhys Clutterbuck walk in after what happened at the start with Rumstar. He was limping a little but looked okay. If you backed Rumstar, do check with your bookmakers. I'm sure a number of them will be refunding after you had no run at all. Team, let's review the week. A week for us that started Ascot, didn't it, Jason? With Hookham winning the King George. So much fallout from it. Jim Crowley came on and spoke to us. I can't remember what day it was. Was it Tuesday?
Yes.
Talked about his ban. He said it's like driving a Formula One car. He didn't know how many times he'd used the whip.
I think that really. Yeah, I think that was a great point as to when you're winning. I've never had it described that way to me. And when you're winning easily, it's sometimes so much easier to count and a couple of taps and away you go, but you're not under that same sort of pressure. But when it's really bumper to bumper and you're racing around the chicane and you are in the heat of battle, it's hard. It's really, really hard, and it must be difficult. I bet if you had a rally at Wimbledon and you said to the player afterwards, how many times was that rally, or how many times did you hit that?
You've only got to count to 6.
Well, I know you're saying you've only got to count to 6. You've got 500 kilos of thoroughbred under you in the biggest race of the summer at Ascot. They're up against each other, and you're racing on a circuit. It's very dangerous.
It's a non-riding thing, isn't it, to say you've only got to count to 6, but you're not thinking about counting a lot at the
You've talked about a tennis rally where you have 30 shots.
Yeah, but you're thinking about 18 other things. If you're not just thinking about how many times you picked up your whip, are you? And don't forget, a lot of the time, because they're doing this with it and they're showing them, you're trying to count the exact number as well as everything else that you're doing. A lot of people can't even talk and listen, let alone 7 things at once.
Sure. I spoke to a couple of jockeys this week, and Jim said when he was pulling up to Rob Hornby, he said, I think I was 1 over. Rob said, I think I was 1 under. I spoke to Tom Marquand. He mentioned about riding up at York, and he went and he got into a bit of a buffeting match, and then he went again and pulling up immediately after. He thought, have I gone 1 over again? So
don't you think that's so sad though?
I know it's hard, but those are the rules.
Just some news from the stewards room. Sorry to interrupt. News from the stewards room. They are still looking into the start of the Stewards Cup, what happened with Rumstar, and they're looking at an inspection to the ground here as to whether racing can go ahead for the rest of the card. So we'll wait and see what happens there. Jockey of the week, Tom Marquand.
Yes, I mean, he did it again today, didn't he? He did it on Quickthorn at the start of the week in the Goodwood Cup when he stole a march on them early. This was probably the key moment in the race, and he was able to put, 3, 4, 5, a widening gap on the rest of the field. And they essentially weren't able to go with him, and he was able to maintain that distance. And the horse, Jason keeps saying that he's got this massive stride length, and when he's allowed to get away on the front end, especially on the downhill loop and swoop of Goodwood, he was able to really get away. And then we saw again Sumo Sam. I'm not saying it's a real Tom Marquand thing, he's one-dimensional, but he was able to just kick away in the Lily Langtree and get a 25-1 shot home in pretty dire conditions. So
everybody will talk about what a great ride it was, and what we don't hear is what went on in that weighing room afterwards. And I can tell you there was a lot of shouting between the jockeys as to why people hadn't gone on. What are we doing? This is a Group 1 race. Why had nobody go and attack the leader? So it's good. It's good that it's lively in there and somebody's going out there and serving it up to them.
Of course, a lot of that could have been that they couldn't maybe quite go with quick foot, because for a horse who's got a lot of stamina, he is actually very quick, and as you say, he's got that big turn of foot. So I don't know, maybe at points in that race some of the riders who could have chosen to chase him didn't feel like they got enough horse underneath them, or they couldn't go quick enough.
You joined us yesterday and didn't hesitate in nominating Addington as one of the highlights of the week. How good is he now, and how good might he be?
I think that he already has shown plenty of ability. Obviously, you're talking about him in the great vein of form of the see the stars kind of thing. He's obviously got to do a little bit more, a lot more, but he's got the right constitution. He's a gorgeous looking big animal. He's with the right person. He's doing all the things he needs to do. And I liked the interview after I watched it at home, of Ryan saying, really want to make it, but nobody else wanted to, so when things haven't gone to plan, you go to plan B and you still get the same kind of result, which shows you his ability.
And I'm still greedy for more. I can't wait to see him again. I can't wait potentially to see him at York in the Jump On International, back up to a mile 2 with a few more taking him on.